They didn't have factories, synthetic dyes, or machines, yet their colors outlived empires. In deserts, jungles, and mountain caves, ancient women turned plain fabric into living art, oozing beetles. Sunlight and secrets passed from mother to daughter. The process looked simple to outsiders. But behind every red thread, every glowing yellow, was knowledge carved from earth, light, and life. Imagine a world before neon hues and mass production. A world where colors came from nature, not chemical labs. That's the world of our story today. Our story is about a special group of women who lived long ago in different parts of the world. They had a unique way of turning ordinary cloth into beautiful pieces of art. What made this possible was their deep understanding of plants and the environment around them. One example of this knowledge is how they used tiny insects called cochineal beetles to make an intense red color. These beetles were found in deserts, jungles, and even high up in the mountains. For the women, these beetles weren't just insects, they were treasure. Why? Because inside these little creatures lay a secret. If you crush these beetles very carefully and dry them in the sun, they release a magical red liquid. This liquid is so valuable that even hundreds of years later, the red stain created by these beetles has not faded away on old pieces of cloth. But getting this red color wasn't just about crushing the beetles. It was a whole ritual. First, they would pick the healthiest looking beetles, making sure to collect only what they needed. They wouldn't hurt any more beetles than they had to. Then they would gently grind the beetles into a fine powder by hand. Imagine sitting patiently and carefully grinding these beetles for hours until you get a smooth paste. That's how much effort these women put into their work. After that, they'd add a few drops of lemon juice, a dash of ashes or salt, depending on the shade of red they wanted. Each ingredient added changed the color just a bit. After mixing everything well, they'd leave the mixture to rest. This mix, which had turned into a dark red liquid, was ready to be used as a dye. Next, they'd take cloth made from flax, cotton, or goat wool. They would carefully dip these pieces of cloth into clay pots filled with the crimson mix. Once the cloth was covered in the dye, they would lift it out gently, letting extra color drip back into the pot, and they would hang the dyed pieces of cloth to dry. But here's where the real magic began. It didn't just rely on the mix of beetle and ingredients to set the color. It relied on the sun. While the cloth was drying, they would hang it facing a specific direction. Throughout the day, as the sun moved across the sky, the cloth would slowly turn, soaking in the sun's heat and brightness. It was like the women were giving the colors a big hug from the sun to make them last longer. For some shades, this sun-soaked bath took 3 sunrises. For others, it happened under the glow of the moon. It was a slow process, but the results were amazing. The final colors were not just vibrant, they were deeply connected to the earth and the universe. But the women didn't stop at red. Oh no. Using plants and things from around them, they created a whole range of colors. Got blue from indigo leaves, gold from pomegranate rinds, and green from copper moss. No 2 pieces of cloth were exactly alike, because no 2 days in nature are exactly alike. The sun, the plants, and the earth all change a little every day, and so did the colors. Each piece of cloth became a unique design. It wasn't just about the color, it was about what the color meant. For instance, red was used for new life, like when a baby was born. Yellow was for healing, like when someone was sick and needed to get better. Deep violet was used when someone had passed away. The patterns and designs also had secret meanings. They told stories about farming, battles, rain, and even hope for a better future. These weren't just clothes. They were stories, memories, and feelings made real. They were like pictures that you can touch and feel. These women weren't just making pretty things. They were making sense of the world around them. They had a special connection to the land they lived on. Before they touched the earth, they listened to it. They knew that everything they needed was there if they asked for it respectfully. What's even more amazing is that these natural dyes lasted much longer than many of the dyes we use today. They didn't hurt the hands of the women who used them. It didn't pollute the rivers and streams. And when the colors faded, it was a slow and graceful process, like leaves changing color in the fall. The dyes would melt away, leaving the cloth as white as snow. It was like the colors were sharing their stories and then disappearing peacefully. Sadly, most people forgot about these amazing dyes and the wisdom of the women who used them. Today we often use harsh chemicals to make bright colors. These chemicals harm the hands of those who work with them, pollute the environment, and quickly fade away. We've forgotten that colors can be more than just pretty shades. They can be a way to connect with the earth and tell stories. The old ways of creating colors are almost lost, like a secret language that not many people understand. But every once in a while, someone stumbles upon a piece of cloth with colors that seem too perfect to be forgotten. When this happens, it's like finding a hidden treasure. These special pieces of cloth remind us of a time when people lived in harmony with nature and understood the true meaning of colors. The women who created these cloths didn't just follow nature, they were part of it. They knew that they couldn't control nature, but they could work with it. They understood that the Beetles, the light, the wind, and the water had their own ways of doing things. So instead of trying to force nature to do what they wanted, they learned to work with it. They trusted that the Beetles would make their colors, the light would set them, and the water would help them last. This way of working with nature, not against it, is a lesson we can all learn from these amazing women. It's not just about how they made their colors, it's about why. They didn't want to dominate nature, they wanted to be a part of it. They saw themselves as part of a bigger picture that included Beetles, sunlight, wind, and water. Every piece of cloth they made was a reminder of this belief. It was a conversation between them and nature, a story written in colors. So the next time you see a piece of cloth with colors as red as the setting sun, remember the women who made it. Remember their patience, their understanding of nature, and their respect for the world around them. These women may be long gone, but their story lives on in the colors they created. Their legacy reminds us that we can live in harmony with nature and that the colors of the earth are more than just pretty shades. They're a way of life. If this hidden truth sparked awe in you or reminded you of something deeper, older, and worth protecting, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on my channel, The Forgotten Path, because some colors were never meant to be forgotten.